Welcome back to another video, and today we're going to be looking into the basics of Excel. So what we're going to be doing today is a little different from my previous videos where they were shorter videos. This will be a longer video and essentially a tutorial on the basics of Excel, and that sort of like beginner entry into Excel. So first things first, when you open up Excel, I'm on a Mac, so this is the page that I've got at the start. So it'll allow you to open up a new workbook, look into your recent workbooks, shared ones, open ones that you might have already saved, etc. And then obviously here I can see all my recent workbooks and documents that I've got in Excel. But what I'm going to do first is simply just start with a blank workbook. So if obviously have blank workbook selected, and then I'll just create. So this is our workbook, and you can see here at the bottom we've got essentially the sheet. So it's called sheet 1. Every time you open up an Excel document, your sheet will be called sheet 1. You can open up as many sheets as you want, although you do need to take into account that you cannot have the same name for a sheet. If you do, then you'll get this alert that name's already taken and that you'll basically need to rename it to a unique name. So if I put that back to sheet 3, that will now be fine. Yeah, so this is our Excel document, our worksheet or workbook. So what we have is essentially our columns, so A, B, C, D, etc. And then we've got our rows. And you can put as much data as you want within Excel, up to around, I think, 1 million cells. So yeah, it can hold a huge amount of data. And so for example, if I put in here hello, so that's in cell C3. What I can actually do is then point to that C3 cell in my E3 cell. So if I do C3, sorry, we can see that hello is now popped up in E3 as well, but it's essentially gathering that data from the C3 cell. Up here we've got our different tabs within Excel. So we've got our home tab, which will have all our basics such as our font size, the color of our font, the data type as well, that can prove really useful. So if I had a number, for example, so 1, 2, 3, 4, I'll name it as prices as the column header. What I'll then do is change this to an actual currency, and that's updated the data type within the sheet. So if I just go and zoom in a little bit more. So yeah, we've also got our insert tab where you can add charts in here, tables, whatever it might be that you want to add to your Excel sheet. We have our draw tab that at times can prove useful. The page layout. So for example, in here you can change it to landscape if you'd want, or keep it as portrait. You can add breaks within your Excel sheet. All sorts that you can add in here really. Now the formula tab, this is very useful. So we've got the actual formula bar here, and we've got the formula tab up here. So this is very useful when you want to write your formulas. Maybe you want to add all these prices, for example. So what I can do here is do equals sum, and then, oopsie, apologies. So equals sum, and then add all of these, and you can see that comes to £10. Or rather than doing that, we've got the auto sum option here in the tab, where it will just automatically pick it up, and we can add all those different prices. So yeah, very useful. So yeah, formula tab, you can do as much as you want in there in terms of from a function perspective. We've also got the fact that in the formula bar you can see the data that's within a cell. So obviously in C3 we've got hello, but you can also see that within the formula bar here at the top. Another useful aspect to Excel is the name box. So the name box will tell you what cell you're within. So at the moment we're in C3, but what you can also do, if needed, is then specify other cells. So I'm specifying C3 and E3, and what it will do is highlight these two cells. So you can see there, it's highlighted both cells and essentially located them for me. So yeah, if you're looking for particular data in particular cells, that can prove quite handy to use the name box. Yeah, so that's the name box. What we also have is some shortcuts that you can do within Excel. So if I do Command up and then press the downward arrow button, it will highlight all the data within that column A. So I'm using a Mac, so it's probably slightly different on a Windows. I believe it's just Control up and then use the downward arrow to highlight the data. But that can prove very useful when you've got a lot of data within your column, and rather than scrolling all the way down, you just take that quick shortcut. In terms of saving your workbook, so you can go up here to File, Save As, and then obviously name the file whatever you would like, save it in the appropriate location, and then obviously you have your different file formats within Excel, so you can save it as an Excel workbook, you can save it as a CSV if necessary, etc. For more advanced things, you can use macros where it will save it as a macro enabled workbook, etc. And then next what we have, so if I write a long sentence within my cell, so we can see here, because it's a longer sentence, the string has essentially overlapped into D5 from C5. So what I can do to correct this and make sure it's all within that C5 cell and looks neater, even though that this is all within the C5 cell, but it looks as if it's gone into the D5 cell, is I can go to the Home tab, and on this option here, we can wrap our text. So then that way, it makes it look a little bit neater. It doesn't look like it's going across into the D5 cell, and yeah, just tidies up your data essentially. So that's quite a useful functionality that Excel has to offer. And then another thing that you can do, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to delete this. Also, as you can see there, because we were pointing to that C3 cell, and we've now deleted it, it's now got rid of that data that was initially in E3, because it's now not pointing to any other data. It will just come up with this error essentially. So what I'm going to do is add an additional column. So I'm going to do products. And then what we'll do is just do bananas, apples, pears, and we'll do strawberries. So some very basic functionality within Excel is that I can now insert a table. So you can pivot tables where you can essentially do a deeper dive into the data, gather some insight from the data that you've got. What I'm going to do is create a table. It will show you the range for your table. If I press OK, we've now got a table here. So you can now do some extra bits on here in terms of filtering the data. So if I just want to see apples, I can just see apples and the price of the apples. I can now clear this filter and it will return me all the data that I have within the table. So yeah, very useful. And then obviously you can begin to do other things with the table. You can edit it to bold it. You can change the color of it. All different things to make it more appropriate for what you might need for whatever reason. So yeah, that's also very useful in Excel. So yeah, this is just a very simple beginner's guide to Excel. Some of the basic things that it has to offer, and things that are useful to know and take into account if you're starting to use Excel. Even if you've used Excel for a long time and there's things that you might not know. Yeah, very useful. And then yeah, next up, another aspect to Excel that you can have is you can drag values down or across. So if I just put hello here, I can then use this to then drag it down. If I press Command Z, it will then go back to the previous step. I can then drag it across, and again Command Z on Mac, and again it will go back to the previous step of where we started. So yeah, those are some nice little shortcuts to know. Yeah, and that's pretty much the basics of Excel. There's a lot more that Excel has to offer. You can do macros, you can do all sorts of functions in your formula tab, whether it's VLOOKUPs, XLOOKUPs, many different things. So yeah, great to use Excel, especially if you're working with data on a daily basis, and it's still something that is used on a daily basis by people within their jobs, within companies, and something I'd highly recommend using and becoming skilled at, as it will be a useful skill for you to progress in your role or just to carry out your daily activities and jobs that you'll have to do. So yeah, thank you for watching. If you like this video, please like and subscribe, and please leave a comment of any other videos that you'd like to see, and anything that you found useful from this video. And I'll catch you in the next one.